This is the CineSnob Podcast.
Hey everybody, and welcome to episode 341 of the CineSnob Podcast. My name is Cody Villafana, and we have a full house again this week. I am joined by Kiko Martinez and Jocelyn Durand. How the hell are you, both of you?
Excellent. Since we've spoke, I saw One Battle After Another, Kiko, too.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's why I'm especially excellent. It was amazing. I loved it.
Well, we have closed the door on that movie.
I know. I just wanted to mention it.
Don't talk about it. You're not allowed. You had your chance. You missed it. And
We can talk about it when it wins best picture this year.
That's right. When it's in our top 10 lists.
Sure, you can talk about it then. But we're back. It's been a little while. Our last recording was back in October, and spooky season has came and went. But festival season has arrived in full swing, and this past week was the Austin Film Festival, a festival that I've covered quite a bit. Had a few years off, but started covering it again a couple of years ago, and always a really great festival to go to. It, my big thing with it is it's like for anyone who wants to experience the film festival but doesn't want to shell out thousands of dollars for South by Southwest or hundreds of dollars for Fantastic Fest. Austin Film Festival is a great option because I think the badges are like less than $200, like maybe like $150, and it gets you a week of movies and conferences and like all kinds of really cool stuff. And this year it's kind of tough because the stuff that played this year there's a lot of like awards caliber or awards running kind of stuff that played this year. You got stuff like Hamnet played there. Is This Thing On, the new Bradley Cooper movie? Jay Kelly, the new Noah Baumbach played. No Other Choice, the new Park Chan-wook movie played. And then some movies that we'll be talking about next week, like Nuremberg and Christie also played there. Sentimental Value played there. Like really great lineup. Knives Out, the new Knives Out movie. And some of this stuff we're going to save for future episodes, especially because we want everyone to be included as much as possible. But I did want to cover a couple of movies that a couple of us have seen because Kiko, you as part of like the coverage for the website have interviewed a couple of people from some of the movies that played at Austin Film Festival. One of them was Christie. We'll kind of talk about this very lightly just because we are covering it next week, but Christie is the new boxing movie. This was an opening night film directed by David, I don't know how you say his last name, but like Michaud or...
the French?
He's an Australian director. He made a movie that Kiko, you and I both really like called The Rover.
Yes.
and he also directed Animal Kingdom. I actually haven't thought about The Rover in a while, but that movie is crazy good. The movie with Robert Pattinson and Guy Pearce.
One of his best roles, I think, for Robert Pattinson, for sure.
For sure. Yeah, he's amazing in it. And anyway, he's the director of Christie, which is a true life story about a female boxer. A movie that, we'll cover it next week, a movie that unfortunately does not work for me on any level. And in a movie where I think Sydney Sweeney is maybe not properly cast, and everyone it feels like almost like SNL sketch level like setup and acting and everything just really did not work for me. But Kiko, you interviewed.
Now that I've slammed it.
You interviewed someone in the cast who is an actor who I think that like both you and I find to be maybe one of the most like fascinating like character actors of the last like 10, 15 years.
Oh,
at least,
definitely.
That's how I feel about him. I think you agree, which is you got to talk to Ben Foster.
I did get to talk to Ben Foster last week. About Chrissy, of course, and talked to him about his character, how he got into it, what he prepared for. Of course, the gentleman that he plays was in prison at the time that they made this, and then he died in prison, so he didn't get a chance to speak with him, but he would have wanted to speak with him. I thought that was a pretty interesting take on what he did with the character. But I love Ben Foster. I mean, he started, I think, probably when he got in it. I think the first time I remember seeing him was probably in something like 310 to Yuma was his biggest one.
That's the thing that really like projected him onto my radar. Was that his role in that movie? He's incredible in that movie.
So 310 to Yuma, he plays like a villain there, and then he's just really great in The Messenger. He's really great in Rampart, even though that film didn't really do too much for me. And
Hell or
then
High
and
Water.
then of course Hell or High Water is just like
yeah.
amazing. Probably my favorite of his films so far. And then Leave No Trace, of course.
Yeah.
That's right. Leave No Trace is something else. So I mean, he's one of those actors that seems very confident and bold in his choices. And it's just he goes out there and this it could be a small art house film, it could be a big budget type of thing like the X-Men that he was in. But yeah, he knocks it out of the park usually.
Yeah. So is that interview up yet, or is that coming up next week?
Not yet. I'll post it next week.
Cool. The other movie I briefly want to talk about is a movie that I'm not sure if or when your interview is running from this, but both of us have also watched The Boy from St. Croix, the documentary about Tim Duncan. And I thought I saw that maybe it was being released on Netflix.
I haven't actually
sometime
checked.
this month. There was a KSAT guy who said that it would be available on Netflix sometime in November. So we'll see about that. But a movie where we covered on this podcast the Tony Parker documentary on Netflix, which is like this very sort of like incomplete, like almost like an EPK kind of look at Tony Parker. This I think is a little bit more like artistically done. It's directed by his brother Scott Duncan, who you did an interview with. We can talk about that in a second, but I feel like, and again, we will talk about this more when it comes out, but a movie where I feel like it is not the sort of like Tim Duncan reveals all, opens up kind of movie, but it is probably more than we have ever gotten from Tim Duncan, opening up a lot. A lot of the framing of the movie is about his family and his family life. But, there's some interesting nuggets in there. Like this is fascinating to maybe only us in San Antonio, but, he talks a little bit about how he's never spoken to Pop or in general about getting subbed out of the famous Ray Allen play where he was not in the game, and potentially maybe could have rebounded that ball and changed the course of history. But I mean, I thought it was a pretty well done documentary. Again, like the best stuff I think in the movie is where Duncan opens up, and then also there's a lot of like footage from Duncan's like camera that he had with him during winning the championships and stuff like that, which I think is like the best stuff that we get in there. But yeah, I enjoyed it, and then you got to talk to his brother Scott, who was the director of the movie.
Yeah, I got to talk to Scott a couple of weeks ago. We talked about how my thing was like, how do you pitch a movie like this to your brother, who's like historically closed-mouthed about everything, like he's just like a hermit when it comes to this kind of stuff. So how do you make a documentary on somebody that's like that? And but like you said, I agree with you. I think overall the film came out really nicely. I was worried about having your brother make a doc about you is kind of does it turn into, what's the word, hyography where you kind of just like you praise the person and don't show anything negative. I don't know if there would be anything negative that you could really say about Tim Duncan on or off the court. I mean, they did kind of touch on the fact that he was divorced. I mean, I guess
but it's just mentioned in passing.
But it's mentioned exactly.
Yeah.
So it's not like he was going to go out and like try to do this like huge like investigative piece on his own brother. But I thought it was done really well. I love the shots of the island, and then of course anything that was from his childhood was really cool to see some old photos that I hadn't seen before and some old videos. So pretty interesting stuff.
Yeah, and there's some other stuff that again we'll talk about in more detail later, but yeah, and so some of the stuff again, like Nuremberg, we're gonna cover next week. I mean, that's another movie that that I saw at the festival, and I think there are a couple of movies that I'm still watching, and so I've got some screeners to get through. So I'll have part 2 of my coverage next week, especially when we do cover Nuremberg and then covering Christie in full, which I also saw as part of the festival. So it's a great festival, and just looking at that lineup, you see that it's like legit. There's a lot of great. I didn't even mention the sort of like there's like a new Pablo Sorrentino movie that played there. There's a new Gus Van Sant movie that played there. Like just kind of like a really impressive lineup this year. Plus the conference and it is a screenwriters conference, and so like Ryan Johnson was there at the conference and then introduced the new Knives Out movie. So more to come on Austin Film Festival soon, but for now we will cover the stuff that is coming out this week and previous weeks. We're gonna, we didn't have a show the last couple of weeks, so there were some movies that we wanted to be sure to cover, especially because this week in particular was kind of slow. So let's go ahead and step into it.
Here are this week's reviews.
All right. Well, first up this week, we're going to cover the one that comes out actually this week, which is Bugonia. Bugonia is the new movie from Yorgos Lanthimos, coming off of probably his biggest success, I would say, with I forget Kinds of Kindness came out in there, but Poor Things, a big success for him, and I actually did not see Kinds of Kindness. Did either of you see that one?
No, that was one that just flew under the radar. I don't even think I knew it was coming out until it was out. So
yeah, and I think it's like an anthology movie or something like that, and it just totally escaped me. And quite honestly, I heard some not flattering things about it, but who's to say? And this movie was written by Will Tracy, and it is a remake of the South Korean movie Save the Green Planet. And this is a movie I saw at Fantastic Fest. It was one of the secret screenings, and it stars Emma Stone and Jesse Plemons. And basically, the idea of the movie is that two men, one of them played by Jesse Plemons, ends up kidnapping a CEO, and basically because they suspect that she is an alien who wants to destroy Earth. And basically go through the process of sort of like questioning her and trying to gain information. And I think that's about all I'll say. So, I think I'm of kind of like two minds when it comes to this movie. I think first and foremost, great performances, as I think we've come to expect from a Yorgos movie. Emma Stone has won. She's won 2 Oscars for him, right? Who won for what, did Olivia Colman win for Poor Things?
The Favorite.
The Favorite, that's right. So Emma Stone won for Poor Things, and then Olivia Colman won for The Favorite, right? Am I making that up?
I don't know.
I'm
if
pretty
did
sure
she win?
that's...
Did
I
Colman win
believe
for,
that's what she won for.
Did she win for? I didn't. Oh, that's right.
So, I think I can't believe she did.
She did. I remember her now on the stage.
Yeah. Anyway, great performance from Emma Stone, but I think this movie, more than anything else, is a showcase for Jesse Plemons, who I think is like really phenomenal in the movie. I was thinking about this the other day, and I think that he's like the closest thing to like Philip Seymour Hoffman now, where you just have a guy who's like a non or atypical sort of like leading man, does a lot of really great, secondary work or character actor work, and then just like there's nobody out there that feels like they're doing what he's doing. And he has this thing where he's done it a few times in a variety of different movies and TV shows too, but he has this sort of like very quietly menacing thing where he can be so unsettling with doing very little. And I think that this is a showcase for his acting. I think his performance is really, really good in this. And I think the movie really works as kind of like a satire for sort of like conspiracy theory, and especially like in the age of kind of like where we're living and kind of like some of the conspiracy theories that have kind of taken over politically and stuff in recent years. I think that this kind of like pokes at that in a really fun and interesting way. I don't know that it necessarily says anything profound about it, but I think that it is entertainingly done and well executed. I think I said I was of two minds, and I think the thing about the movie that kind of took a little bit away from my and feelings on it is that I don't really like the way that the movie ends. And I don't want to give too much away here, but I do feel like the ending like undercuts a lot of the thematic elements of the movie in a way where I think that the sort of there are elements of the movie that I think would work a lot better had it ended differently. And I think that's about as much as I want to say about it. But overall, it's solid. And again, I saw this movie, almost 2 months ago at this point. So it's not the freshest thing in the world for me. So I'll step aside and I will go ahead and go to Kiko. What were your thoughts on Bugonia?
So it was obvious from the trailer, of course, that it was all going to come down to whether or not Emma Stone's character is an alien or not, right? And that, we don't want to give anything away. So it wasn't as much of a twist because one of those two things is going to be revealed. So first, the good was that I enjoyed watching Emma Stone be bizarre again. I mean, I think that suits her well. We've seen her in the past with Poor Things, like we said. Eddington was a little bit recent, which. More recent this year or earlier this year, which was another film centered on conspiracy theorists. So I'm thinking that she might sneak into Best Actress race with this one, but I wouldn't consider it like entirely memorable. But it's very good. I'm gonna agree with you when you said Jesse Plemons was the one that I was most impressed with in his role as this conspiracy beekeeper. I like how grounded his character was portrayed. Like he was never hamming it up. He just seemed like this regular dude who fell down a rabbit hole of like all this craziness. So I thought he also brought a real sadness to the role, whether we're watching him like interact with his cousin who's autistic or his sick mother, thinking about her. There's a lot of moments of outburst, of course, with him, but a lot of what he conveys was like pain through this really nuanced performance. So I enjoyed watching him do that. Despite him being like the villain of the film, quote unquote, the villain of the film, he also earned my empathy, at least in certain aspects of it. So the biggest problem for me in Bugonia was parts of the script. Once it's established that Emma's character is, isn't going anywhere after she's kidnapped and thrown into this basement, the film, I thought, lost some momentum. I thought that, Plemons battling wits with Emma Stone's character was going to pique my interest, but it didn't do that as much as I would have liked. I'm going to say, like with Lanthimos, some of the strange storytelling that he brings to his films is enough to keep me mostly engaged. And I'm going to totally disagree with you with the ending. I love the ending. I thought it was absurd. I thought it leaned more into the metaphor. But again, I enjoy films like that kind of allow me to dissect things and allow me to read way too much into them. So, I'm thinking about, how fragile this world is, corporate greed, the idea of the hive mentality that's happening. It's all there and a lot more. And I'm still thinking about it. I saw it today, but I'm probably will be thinking about it for the rest of the week. So, I enjoyed Bugonia.
Yeah. And Jocelyn, your thoughts on Bugonia?
Well, I was glad that I heard you use the word fun because I think this is maybe one of the most fun Lanthimos movies that I've seen. I think he has a tendency to be, real dark and like play into those really kind of very mean and mean-spirited kind of movies. And on the surface, you would think that this would be in that same realm, just because of the subject matter. But it really, I think because of Emma Stone, in my opinion, who I think really kind of, yes, Jesse Plemons is given, I think, more of the meteor stuff to do, but I really think if she wasn't there to be like almost like a wall to his insanity, then it would fall apart. And I think she does it in a really subtle and sort of intense way. Like just, I think, I can't remember. I think Kiko said the battling wits. It's really like a battling of wits. Like they're both very intelligent characters, and you can tell that they're sort of like just butting heads basically. And of course, there's a power dynamic because she's clearly a prisoner. But I'll disagree. I don't think that I went into this movie questioning whether it was her being an alien or not. I went in thinking like it's just going to be this insane person who, kidnaps the CEO type of a thing. So for me, I think what really made me interested in the movie was seeing how it turned that role around to where, like, I don't know, about halfway through, I started questioning myself as to who was right and like who was actually telling the truth. And I think that is a really hard thing to do for something that sounds so insane, like whether she's an alien or not. It sounds ridiculous. And so for me, I thought the ending was just fantastic. I loved it so much. I love that it went there. And it just kind of like, it went full, full, like, insanity.
It was dark. That was dark though. You have to admit that. We're talking about Lanthimos not being more fun,
but it was still fun in the way that it happens. Like the things that happen are still kind of quite funny and over the top to the point where it's not so dark, I think. But yeah, I mean, but then of course the final scene was like one of the darkest things I've ever seen, and I sat there just like kind of like in awe of what had happened. So I think for that final scene, yes, I think that was him at his like darkest. But I think the general attitude of the movie leading up to that point was really kind of like silly and fun and yes, violent and dark. But I just enjoyed this one a lot. I really liked this one.
All right, well, we'll get into final thoughts and grades. And yeah, again, for me, I think that this is sort of like mid-tier Lanthimos for me. I feel like it's not as good as his best stuff, and it's not as, and it is a good. I did like it. I just don't think it hits the heights of my favorites. And I think it's interesting because my favorites are maybe not the traditional favorites that people might have. Like
what is it?
The favorite?
My favorite is the killing of a sacred deer.
Okay.
And,
God, what?
And then
I know that's
my
bizarre.
second favorite is the lobster. Those are kind of like my
I love
two
the
favorites.
lobster.
Yeah,
I
the
think
lobster would be at the
lobster's-
top of mine.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
Favorite also. Oh my
But I
God.
think it's mid tier of as far as his work is concerned, and I think it's solid. It's kind of interesting because the movies that interestingly that are on my list of his favorites are two of the ones that he's written. And
Right.
and like The Favorite and Poor Things and Bugonia, he hasn't written. So I think I might just like his voice and the way that he does things. And he has
That's
that
fair.
sort of like stilted dialogue that feels kind of completely weird in those movies that I find myself just really interested in. So I think that I that's the sort of lane that I like him the most in. That being said, I think that it's a really solid acting showcase for both Emma Stone and especially Jesse Plemons. I think that it is like legitimately funny. I think that it's weird. I like when it leans into the weirdness. I like when it leans into the sort of like, there's those types of movies where like people are, like being held against their will for some kind of conspiracy, like Hiko, the Beyond the Hills, movie, where someone is like the people in a convent, tie up this woman thinking that she's possessed by the devil, and she's like just a normal person.
Right.
I think that genre is super interesting, and I think that this executes that well. That being said, for me, the ending does not. I think that the ending is executed well, but I don't think that the ending punctuates the things in the ways in which I would have liked them to. So for me, this is kind of like a solid, just B. This is a B for me. Kiko, your final thoughts and grade.
Yeah, again, I thought the central mystery was what I came in for, but since it was telegraphed early, I wasn't really thrown off, even though it does take a kind of like a twist second twist at the end. But again, don't want to say too much. But the entire thing, it thrives on the strength of its two performances. Emma Stone, she gets back into this groove of hers that she had with Poor Things. The performance won't linger in my mind as much as Poor Things did, but she still did a really good job. The standout, of course, for me was Plemons, who brings this quiet heartbreak and empathy to a man that's spiraling into these conspiracy theories and this loneliness. So, I thought the story lost a little bit of momentum, but this dance between, I wish this dance between the two lead characters was a little bit more gripping. But the wild ending had this strange power over me, I think, and it's a little bit messy and sometimes uneven. But I'll be thinking about it for the next week. So I'm giving this also a solid B.
And Jocelyn.
Yeah, I think I just enjoy a movie that does a bit of a magic trick, and I think he kind of hit his cards really well. And I think even the marketing of the movie, I never would have gone into it thinking that the ending would have played out that way. I really thought it was just going to be a straightforward, like kind of CEO being held by a crazy conspiracy theorist. So to see the little sleight of hand and to see how it all played out, I just was very surprised and amused by. And I went into this putting a B, but I think just speaking about it now, I'm gonna add a plus to that.
Nice.
All right. Well,
we got to remember for Halloween to wear those frocks that those people at the end were wearing.
As I was watching it, I was like, dang, I could have done a bald cap and been like Emma Stone. Like, that would have been so cool.
Yeah, that would have been.
All right. Well, we will go ahead and move on to our next film, Springsteen, Deliver Me from Nowhere. So this is a film that was wrote and directed by Scott Cooper. No stranger to music-based films, as he was the writer and director of Crazy Heart, the movie with Jeff Bridges. And this is a Bruce Springsteen biopic based on a book that was written about him in 2023, telling the story of his basically like his journey and struggles that happened while he was writing and recording his album Nebraska, which came out in 1982. It stars Jeremy Allen White from The Bear fame as Bruce Springsteen. It also stars Jeremy Strong and Paul Walter Hauser. And yeah, it sort of does an interesting thing where like I kind of like this sort of biopic that happens that's like about a very specific period in a person's life, because you don't have to spend an hour doing an origin story on someone. And so I like these sort of like slices of a period of time in a person's life, and this is also accompanied by like flashback scenes of Bruce Springsteen's childhood, and that's kind of the thing that colors in some of what he's going through, which I'll talk about again in a minute. But yeah, it's an interesting thing because I feel like it feels like two distinctly separate movies going on here, and that are constantly at battle with one another. Like clearly they want to include Jeremy Allen White doing like Bruce Springsteen hits that we all know. And so you get these like glimpses of like where it feels like there's like these performance scenes where he's performing, Born to Run or, Born in the USA and stuff like that. Movie songs that are not on this album that everything is about, and that is like the centering of all of this. Famously, this album did not have any singles on it, and so they're trying to sort of like balance this of like, oh, it's a Bruce Springsteen movie, here's Born to Run or whatever, but then they're also trying to throw at you this sort of like emotionally tumultuous period of time in his life where he's just very kind of like emo and sad and depressed and all of this other stuff. So I feel like these things are like constantly at odds with one another during the movie. On the plus side, I think that I'm always going to appreciate when an actor actually sings in a movie and you're not lip syncing. And I feel like Jeremy Allen White does a really nice job here performing as Bruce Springsteen. Not like the most beautiful voice in the world that you're trying to replicate here, but and by the way, I should say this too. I don't give a shit about Bruce Springsteen. I've never understood him, never got it. I'm just not. I'm just not a fan. I never have been. But he does a good job in sort of like mimicking the voice and everything. And his performance is, I think, good. It's maybe it's just because I've watched so much of The Bear, but this, you're seeing this sort of like emotionally unavailable, moody character, and it basically felt to me like Carmy with, brown contacts in a lot of the time. And so if you've seen The Bear, you've basically seen this performance with basically just like different color eyes and a different sounding voice. Not to say that it's bad. He's great in that show. He's good in this movie. Jeremy Strong, I think, is just sort of like one note in the movie.
Watch it.
I think that it's just a perfectly fine performance from him. But I don't think that he's given a whole lot to do aside from just basically giving like pep talks and speeches and being Bruce's right hand man and stuff like that. But I don't think that is a particularly strong part, although he is adequate in his role. And I think that where the movie falters is, again, these things are at odds with each other. I think the musical scenes are well executed. Even the scenes of them in the studio or him writing the music. I mean, I think that is where the movie is at its most interesting. What I don't think works about this movie is this sort of like emotional journey through depression that it kind of takes you on, especially because I don't think it ever contextualizes his mood or depression beyond just his childhood experiences. You see him sort of like moody, you see him not want to commit in this relationship, you see him like have a panic attack or struggle, but you don't really know what's behind that at any point in the movie, aside from, again, these glimpses that you see from his past. So for me, I'm like, why is he so sad? What's going on? Like, open up, Bruce. I can't tell why you're feeling this way. In fact, it's so much the case where, like, at this on the screen, they talk about how Bruce Springsteen battled depression for many years or whatever. And I'm like, oh, well, I guess, like, is that what was going on here? Or is he just like, afraid to commit or, has daddy issues or whatever? Like, so I don't know. I just feel like it's so surface level on an emotional scale where like half the movie is devoted to. And I just feel like, again, these things are at odds with each other. Does it want to be this sort of like Springsteen, sort of like, I saw someone refer to it as sort of like the jukebox musical, right? And like, does it want to be that, or does it want to be this look at this tortured artist, or does it want to be this look into this album, or does it want to be like, I can't figure out what it was. So for me, you have a bunch of different elements that are working on, like varying levels in creating this piece that I think does not work on a complete level. So for me, it's a miss. But I will go to Jocelyn because Kiko, I don't believe you saw this one. So
Correct.
Jocelyn, your thoughts on Springsteen Deliver Me From Nowhere?
Well, and you're a mental health professional, so I mean, I'm going to defer to you on all of those elements as far as that goes. I will say that I could watch these two actors read a telephone book. I love them so much. Just seeing them on the same screen was such a treat for me. Like going into that alone, I was just ecstatic. I agree with you that I was very happy to see that it was going to be like a slice of life sort of a biopic instead of a like let's start from the beginning. So it's like this moment in time and then splicing in sort of the history and going back to his father, which I was also very happy to see Stephen Graham as the dad, which was kind of a cool little bonus great actor performance for me. And I did like how that relationship played out in the movie as well. I liked seeing where it ended and how it started, and I love that they didn't really paint him as the true villain. Like he wasn't perfect. He had a hard life when he was young, but I like that they didn't make it so sensational. Just that element, but also the entire movie, I liked that it wasn't sensational. I know that for you took it as like being a little bit boring, but for me, I prefer that to whatever the hell the Dylan movie was with people freaking fist fighting at the Norfolk folk festival. So I would much prefer this sort of understated sort of biopic where maybe it is a little slower. But for me, I just was enjoying the performances. I totally agree with you as far as the disconnect, as far as like what's happening with his like depression and all that, to the point where at one point in the movie, I really didn't realize that it was the same timeline where he was recording this album and then having this relationship with this woman. Mm-hmm. I thought they were like that. He was like reflecting on it in the past, and then when I realized that it was happening at the same time, it didn't make any sense to me. It's like he's so isolated and withdrawn, but yet he's like having this like new romance with this woman, and that's where it really kind of lost me a little bit. That didn't make sense. But I will say I did love that Jeremy Strong and him, they didn't really explain their relationship. They just kind of dropped you into it. And then seeing that sort of friendship was, I think, impactful for me. Last thing I'm going to say is you're right that they did have to add Born to Run. And Born in the USA made a little more sense because he did record it during that time period. But my God, those performances were excellent. Like that concert for Born to Run, I'm not a Springsteen person either, but I'm like, am I gonna go listen to Born to Run on Spotify later? Because like watching him do it live was just incredible. Even his impression of it live was incredible. But yeah, I thought the brown contacts were also kind of funny because it did seem just like Carmy wearing brown contacts. So yeah, I had the exact same thought. But all that to say, I think I get your criticisms of it, but I enjoyed it despite those things that you saw more as negative. I think I have more of a tolerance for. Yeah, so that's where I fall on it.
Yeah, and we'll get into final thoughts and grades, and just to kind of like, I should say that it's not that I felt like it was boring. I just felt like it was very generic, right? And I think that like it hits a lot of like musical biopic tropes. And
like the Dewey Cox stuff.
Yeah, look, I mean, I think I'm not the first person to ever say this, but like right. Walk Hard has ruined musical biopics because if you even have like one remotely generic thing that happens in there, like Walk Hard, like touched on it and totally made fun of it. And it's but yeah, there is a lot of sort of like Walk Hard, stuff like that in there. But yeah, for me, this is a movie where I'm not going to like trash it as being like bad or anything, like really bad or anything, because I do think that there are elements of it that do work. I almost think that if you did take the jukebox musical route, it might have been like better, because I feel like Jeremy Allen White is really like impressive here musically, and I feel like you could. I don't know if either of you saw, there was like a Springsteen kind of like jukebox musical movie called Blinded by the Light that came out years ago. Kiko, did you ever see that one?
I don't think I did. I don't remember that title.
Yeah, it was like it was from 2019, and it was about this like Pakistani person living in England, and it was like all through like Bruce Springsteen songs and stuff like that. Anyway. But yeah, I mean, again, like, I just feel like this movie is just at odds with itself, so many times. And I feel like, for every moment that's good, which is like seeing him perform, Born to Run, or, hearing his version of Hungry Heart, or like whatever you're doing, like the hits, it's just this like really brooding, generic, like tortured musician kind of stuff going on. And I feel like it does that with very little insight into like what was making him tick at that time, aside from, again, like I said, some childhood trauma. I think that's the most that you get, but I don't see that ever manifesting as like, oh, this is getting in the way of his relationship, or like even like that the songs that he's writing is putting him in this headspace. Like that's not there, right? It's just not there. And so for me, I'm gonna have to say that this movie as a whole does not work. I am giving it a C+. Jocelyn,
Ouch.
Your final thoughts and grade.
Ouch. Yeah. I thought it avoided a lot of the sort of, biopic for a musician cliches, since it was kind of dropping you into just like this moment. I thought it kind of circumvented them a lot. But I will say that I agree that there were a lot of generic elements to it. Um, but you're talking about a Springsteen biopic. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like there has to be a certain amount of genericness to it. Otherwise, fans are going to be upset, or, the artist won't sign off on it. Like, you have a lot of sort of bumpers that you have to kind of navigate, I think, when you're doing a movie like this. But with all that said, I still really enjoyed it. The live performances were really incredible. I was quite struck by it, way more than I was for the Dylan movie, and I'm giving it a solid B.
All right. So let's go ahead and move on to our next film, Shelby Oaks. This is a film that I believe all three of us saw. And Shelby Oaks is a film that was... I did not see it at Fantastic Fest, but it did play at Fantastic Fest. And it is written and directed by Chris Stuckman, who is a former film critic. So get ready, Chris Stuckman, because you're in the spotlight now. It's a movie that, interestingly, was written by him and his wife, and apparently was crowdfunded through Kickstarter. Had become the most funded horror film on the platform. As part of it, and it is basically a movie about these like paranormal investigators on YouTube who go missing, and years later, through the filming of like a documentary about them, one of the persons who went missing, sister, is given basically like a clue as to where her disappeared sister might be, and kind of follows along and tries to uncover the mystery of what happened. So here, let me talk about first, like my big first problem with the movie is that the framing of this movie and the framing device of this movie is like really annoying. Like, this movie opens up as like a fake documentary, that in like the first like 10-15 minutes are like a documentary that's being filmed, and then for whatever reason it breaks format after 10 to 15 minutes and just becomes like a regular movie. I don't understand that. Either make it all regular or make it all documentary. Why are we switching this in the middle of it? It doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't really work. It's jolting. It's distracting. I don't like the way that it format switches. With that being said, I think that the sort of like main takeaway I have from this one is I just found it to be really, really boring. I feel like not a whole lot happens within the span of the movie. I don't think that it's paced particularly well. I also don't think that it's particularly scary. I don't know that the horror elements of it really work. It's a movie that just sort of like ends with not a whole lot of payoff either. And I just it just feels like it's like a little try hardy in the way that it's put together. I just feel like it doesn't connect on, I think, what it's trying to accomplish, and it's just forgettable. I saw this movie a couple of weeks ago, and I'm struggling right now to remember like even like plot points and elements of it, because it's like it left my head the second that I walked out of the door. So yeah, I mean, again, there are, I guess some certain elements of it that are interesting, but to me, this just looks like a low budget horror movie that is, kind of boring and dull, that unnecessarily, switches formats almost like it's, again, like show-offy, and I don't think that it particularly works. I also don't think that the performances in the movie are particularly good either. Yeah, I found this to be an unpleasant time at the cinema. So I will go ahead and switch to Jocelyn. Let's have you go first again here, and tell us your thoughts on Shelby Oaks.
Oh gosh, I was about to kick my feet up and listen, but yeah, switching it up. I totally agree about the documentary elements of it. It's a huge pet peeve of mine, especially when there are like supposed to be doing they're doing this documentary, but then there's like scenes where they would not be recording the things that they are recording, if that makes sense. Like they're like having conversations, and for some reason that's captured in the documentary. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
it doesn't make any sense, and I hate that.
It's
a
like
huge
it's
pet-
like it's
pet
like
peeve of mine.
convenient B-roll
Yes,
or
how
whatever.
yes, exactly. How conveniently that they're recording this like argument that they're having, and why would anybody be like, "Oh, let me record this"? It doesn't make any sense. And also, who is recording it? But anyway, so there's that element that just doesn't work. Like you said, it's completely boring. And then the thing that really pissed me off, I think the most, was at the end. The twist is completely preposterous. Like, of course, it's ridiculous because it's like, extraterrestrial. It's like all, woo woo stuff. But like if the twist, what they're like positing from the twist, if you go back, like it doesn't make any sense. And so I was like you said, I was just happy to get out of that theater, and it kind of left me as soon as I did. But I was also just kind of like thinking about it on the way home driving, and I was just like, that doesn't make any sense. Like it made me really angry. So yeah, I just think that there was nothing here that I enjoyed. And that sucks because we had such a good Halloween run. We had such a good run this Halloween. So that kind of sucks that this was the last spooky movie that we saw.
Yeah. That's very true. Kiko, what'd you think about Shelby Oaks?
Well, it's I guess it's going over 3 with the folks at CineSnob.net, because I mean, for me, if you're gonna make a found footage film, it has to be somewhat groundbreaking or very extremely entertaining, because we've seen so many of them in the past 25 years since, I guess, the Blair Witch Project made them mainstream, right? So you've had your sometimes you have 3 or 4 a year, sometimes you have a dozen. I mean, they're all over the place. So, and with Shelby Oaks, I just didn't think there was enough originality in the script. Like, the podcast backstory wasn't enough to hook me. The mystery behind this woman's disappearance, I thought it felt unfocused and at times frustrating. I thought the second half felt a lot more rushed than the slow burning first hour. So I thought going into the second part, the story got a little bit overly complicated for me, and then the climax at the end just didn't deliver a logical payout or payoff for me as well. So, overall, I found it very average and more gimmicky than what I was hoping for. If we're talking about found footage, a couple of my favorites are like Creep and Creep 2.
Yeah, but it's almost like this is generous to call this a found footage movie, because it's really like 20 minutes of found footage. Like the rest of the
True, I
movie is very
guess.
standard and straightforward.
Yeah, I guess you could say that, but I mean, I want, if you're gonna, I mean, I guess it's kind of calling itself that a little bit, but anyway, I just want something that's clever. I want something that's demented, and there's little here with this film, Shelby Oaks, aside from the look and feel. It looks great. I mean, I just wouldn't want to take a second look at it. So that's where I am with it. I'm glad that he was able to pull down all that money. That's pretty incredible to be able to, fund an entire movie just off of a Kickstarter and with no filmmaking background whatsoever. So I was going to bring this up later on, but I'm going to be posting my interview with the director to our website this week. So
Yeah.
we had a very good conversation about it. So he's a really nice guy. I just especially about film criticism and how that translates over to filmmaking. So
Yeah,
anyway.
I do think that is an interesting sort of like leap. Didn't Ebert make a movie once?
Did
Or
he?
wrote a
I'm not
movie?
sure. Oh yeah, the Valley of the Dolls.
Yeah. I don't think he ever directed, but I know he wrote that movie. So let's go ahead and give final thoughts in this. And again, this is just a very unmemorable movie that does not seem to want to commit to its early framing device of found footage. And again, coming off of watching VHS, which is like using the found footage medium in super creative ways, this is a way of like using it as a gimmick to the first part of your movie, basically, especially because it's about like YouTubers or whatever. So for me, this movie falls flat in just about every area. Again, I don't think the supernatural elements of it work. I don't think that it's scary. I don't actually agree that I think it looks great. I think it looks kind of bad. So I mean, I think for me, almost nothing about it worked. Is it like atrociously unwatchable? No, but it is boring as hell. So I'm giving this a C. Jocelyn, your final thoughts and grade.
Yeah, I hate to say I have an opinion about people who are critics or scholars of movies and them trying to become filmmakers. I think that even Tarantino may cross the line of being too much of a fan to be a brilliant director. So I just think sometimes it's like you can appreciate film, and then you have like the people like Lanthimos who are just like insane creatives and just are masterminds at this profession. So not saying that's here. I'm just saying I can write a whole freaking thesis on that. And I just think this was just not a great premise. And I mean, I can see that they probably thought this was going to be an interesting kind of idea, and it just doesn't work out at all for me. So I'm giving it a C-.
And Kiko.
Yeah, back to the film critic turned filmmaker type of thing. That's what we always get, though. I mean, I've gotten it a few times and it's local filmmakers usually. Oh, well, if you're gonna trash my movie, why don't you make your own? Oh, you probably can't. You know how to do it, right?
Of course
that
not.
kind of
yeah.
thing.
And I'm like,
first one to be like, "Yep, you're right."
Yeah, like I wouldn't want to make one.
Exactly.
I just want to tell you why yours sucks. That's my role in this world. Anyway, so I whether you want to call it a found footage film or not, I don't care. It just never finds that spark for me. The podcast angle doesn't add much weight, and the central mystery around this missing woman, it just is more frustrating than intriguing to me. So I thought the slow burn beginning was fine, but it stumbles at the end, and I guess it's serviceable, but it's forgettable. So I'm also giving this a solid C.
All right. So we'll go ahead and move on to our final film of the episode, The Perfect Neighbor. So The Perfect Neighbor is a documentary film that was released on Netflix a couple of weeks ago. And the reason why I wanted to bring it up, even though it's like the release has passed, is just because it's a movie that I saw at Sundance back in January, and has kind of like stuck with me since. It's a documentary about, and I'm gonna give this away because I feel like this is like it's a news story, so I feel like people out there, if you follow the news, might be aware of it. But it is basically following a series of escalating events that eventually led to Adjika Owens, a woman in Florida, getting killed and shot and killed outside of her neighbor's home. And basically what the movie does is give you, again, like the series of escalating events. However, the sort of like interesting part about it is that the movie is almost entirely made up of police body cam footage. So the police were called a number of times in the span of like a couple of years, and each sort of scene in the movie is the body cam footage from all of these calls, and then eventually there's also some CCTV footage of like interrogations that happen, and that's like the bulk of the movie. So, like I said, I saw this movie at Sundance and did not know too much about the story itself, but, you can clearly see where the movie is headed when you start watching it. And so you can see where it's headed. You can see that, like, something, very bad and tragic is going to happen. And you get to see, like, the story sort of unfold through the body cam footage. And I think that's oftentimes, like, the most interesting kind of documentary, is the one that sort of just like presents the footage and lets the audience sort of like, decide like what they think of the people and how they are. I think a lot of times documentaries can come from a certain angle that's like very aggressive, and sometimes filmmakers like get in their own way with like overbearing voiceover, or like trying to direct you to clear things, or having it be cleverly edited or whatever. This, I really appreciate the sort of like rawness of the police body cam footage, because you are seeing, I mean, of course it's edited, but you are seeing everything unfold, and you are the person who is like, you know, putting the pieces together. A couple of things. I feel like this movie features the biggest movie villain of the year, probably, and in the lady that's involved in this. I don't want to give too much away, but this is the most infuriating movie I've seen in a really long time, where you're just watching this movie and like getting pissed off at what you're seeing, especially knowing where it goes. The other thing about this movie that I will say is that it's so well made. Like, it is like insanely well crafted. The editing alone is really incredible. The way that it's put together, the way that it like composes its footage and stitches it together, the way that it sort of paces itself through everything, the way that it builds cinematically as a documentary. I just feel like this movie is so well produced and edited and directed. That's super impressive to me. And then, of course, the story itself, again, it's an infuriating, you know, documentary that will make you angry, and just like it carries a lot of like really heavy emotional weight, especially as, you know, this sort of act of violence unfolds, and, you know, you see the police body cam footage of the aftermath of everything and everyone around this neighborhood. And I guess I should give a little context to it. So basically, the cops are coming because this white lady, and that is important, is basically continuously calling the cops on the neighborhood children who are predominantly black, for like playing in a yard next to her house, and she keeps on calling the cops, and you know, that is the sort of escalating event that happens. And yeah, I mean, I think it's just such a tragic story, and I feel like it never feels like it's exploiting anyone as part of it. I think it's really well done, even when you're seeing like these very raw moments of emotion in the aftermath of it. It's just, I feel like it's delicately presented, and yeah, I mean, I just think that this is an amazing documentary film. I would be shocked if it wasn't nominated for the Best Documentary Oscar. Yeah, just really impressed by the filmmaking. So, Kiko, what were your thoughts on The Perfect Neighbor?
Yeah, this easily was one of the least sensationalized true crime documentaries that I've ever seen. You know, the way the film unfolds through these body cameras and the footage from the police station was incredibly effective for me. So there's no dramatic editing. Again, you said there was editing, but it's not overly dramatic. There's no swelling music. Right. There's no stylized reenactments. So there's no quote unquote entertainment value in the way this scenario plays out, which is great. I just love the way they made it work. For a minute, I thought there would have to be holes like in the story that weren't captured, you know, and things that wouldn't mesh together. But as it slowly, you know, went along, you know, those narrative pieces, even if they were missing, didn't take away from, you know, the emotional, you know, battering ram that this movie becomes, because it is super, I mean, it's heartbreaking. I mean, there's one specific scene where the father has to break some news to his kids. That was easily, you know, the gut punch of the year for me. I mean, I was just like floored. So, you know, if you know about the story, I would suggest that you go into it knowing as little as possible, because, you know, it wasn't shocking to me as it might have been if I didn't know what happened. So whether you decide to do a little bit of research or not, I would suggest you don't. I try to go into things like this without, but I had already known about it a little bit. So, but besides that, I mean, this is an incredible documentary filmmaking, and definitely something that you should check out before the award season rolls around.
Yeah, and it is available on Netflix currently. I watched it again a couple of weeks ago, yeah. So we'll get into final thoughts and grades. And yeah, for me, not only is this the best documentary of the year, but I think it's one of the best movies I've seen this year. Period. It's not necessarily like an easy watch, but if you're a fan of documentary filmmaking, this is you know, a really well executed thing, and I think you're exactly right. It's not sensationalized whatsoever. Like I said, the footage speaks for itself, and it's not like, again, it's almost like the director is saying like, here's this footage, watch it, and you can clearly see what's going on here. I'm not even going to say anything. And I think like that is like the most powerful stuff, where like the footage itself and the collection of footage stitched together does all the speaking that it needs. It will infuriate you. It will anger you. And it will bring up emotion within you. And I just think it's just such a well-crafted piece of filmmaking. So I'm giving this an A-. Kiko, your final thoughts and grade.
Yeah, I just love the way that it, it strips away these, these usual documentary things like, the ominous score, flashy editing, the decision not to do any kind of reenactments. It's just raw, devastating footage in this very heartbreaking case. So, there's the emotional impact for me was just undeniable. I mean, there's some hard hitting moments of like, unbearable human grief happening here. So it's not an easy watch whatsoever, but its authenticity speaks volumes. So I'm giving this a B+.
All right, and that is going to do it for this week. So next week we have a packed show. We have hitting Netflix Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein, a movie that is out in theaters now if you can catch it. It'll probably get pulled once it's on Netflix because Netflix doesn't like splitting their business. But if you, I saw it over the weekend. If you can see it in a theater, I would recommend doing so. We also have Predator Badlands. We have Nuremberg. We have Die My Love, and we have the aforementioned Christie. So 5 movies coming out. We will have, like I said, a packed show and full throttle into awards season here. So if you want to reach out to us, find us on all social media. Look up CineSnob. You'll find us there. You can also go to cinesnob.net for the latest in coverage. You will be able to see interviews that Kiko has done. You'll be able to find individual reviews that we're covering here in case you just want to know what we thought about a certain movie and don't want to listen to an hour of this. Kiko, speaking of, anything hitting the website this week?
Yeah, like I said before, I got to talk with Chris Stuckman about Shelby Oaks, so that'll be up very soon. I also interviewed Michaela, I always get this name mixed up, Michaela J. Rodriguez for season 2 of Apple TV series Loot that stars Maya Rudolph. And then I also talked to actor Asa Butterfield. If you remember him, he was in Martin Scorsese's 2011 family adventure Hugo. He plays the voice role in the animated movie Stitchhead, which is a kiddie version of Frankenstein. So all that and more will be at cinesnob.net. So check it out.
Awesome. All right. So that's going to do it for this week. Yeah, thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to this CineSnob podcast. To read reviews, interviews, and more, visit cinesnob.net. See you next week.